Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Begum with you on this Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, as President Trump's state visit begins, China says it's ready to work with the U.S. in the spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. The Chinese and Tajik presidents have signed a new treaty on friendship and cooperation between the two countries. And South African authorities are tracing nearly 100 contacts linked to passengers on the hantavirus-struck cruise ship. In business, U.S. companies in China express optimism as President Trump heads to Beijing. In sports, China's under-17 footballers qualify for the U17 World Cup for the first time in decades. In culture and entertainment, two legendary actresses have helped to open this year's Cannes Film Festival. Now today's top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump begins a state visit to China on Wednesday. China says it's willing to work with the United States in the spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit to expand cooperation and properly manage differences and bring more stability and certainty into a turbulent world. Ahead of Trump's arrival in China, Chinese and U.S. delegations held economic and trade consultations in South Korea. China described the exchanges as candid, in-depth, and constructive. China said, under the consensus reached by the heads of state, the two sides upheld the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. They discuss issues of mutual concern and further cooperation. China's ambassador to the United States says head of state interactions offer irreplaceable strategic guidance to China-U.S. relations amid growing global uncertainty. Xie Feng also spoke about the Taiwan question, bilateral trade, and people-to-people exchanges, among other issues, during an interview with Newsweek. Chijer has details.
Ambassador Xie Feng said stable and constructive ties serve the fundamental interests of both peoples and meet the shared expectations of the international community. He expressed hope that the upcoming Beijing summit will be a success and set the right direction for China-U.S. relations going forward. On China's domestic and foreign policies, Xie said China strives to advance national modernization across all fields and commits itself to building a global community with a shared future for humanity and pursuing peaceful development together with all nations. As 2026 marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan, the ambassador noted that China will inject steady momentum into the global economy and provide valuable development opportunities to all. The ambassador also addressed several long-standing issues in China-U.S. relations, including Taiwan, trade, and counter-narcotics cooperation. On the Taiwan question, Xie reiterated that there is only one China. Taiwan is an inalienable part of Chinese territory, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China. Turning to the fentanyl issue, he said the crisis in the United States was not created by China, adding that illegal drugs are a common challenge facing humanity and require efforts to both reduce demand and curb supply. On economic ties, Xie acknowledged competition between the world's two largest economies, but said China does not view the relationship as a zero-sum contest. Instead, he described it as a track-and-field race toward mutual excellence, stressing the importance of cooperation alongside competition. The ambassador also pointed to growing interest in cultural and educational exchanges between the two countries. Referring to the recent Becoming Chinese trend, Xie said it reflects the growing eagerness of people from both countries to reach out to one another. He added that the potential for people-to-people exchanges has not yet been fully realized, and expressed hope that the United States would take more steps to facilitate two-way engagement. For the Beijing Hour, I'm Chijer.
For many foreigners, China may still feel distant or unfamiliar, but for one young American student, it's become a place of discovery, learning, and connection. Zhang Tao has more.
At a World Culture Festival at Beijing Language and Culture University, Zachariah Levi stood out in a Texas cowboy outfit, happily posing for photos with Chinese students. The 25-year-old American has even given himself a Chinese name, Tie Fu, inspired by Marvel's Iron Man, saying he wanted a name with the spirit of a superhero. Zachariah has been living in Beijing for just over a year, studying Chinese, But for him, learning the language is about much more than vocabulary or grammar.
I like to think about Chinese. It's kind of like it's like everything. Every sentence is like a poem. There's a specific flow to every word in every sentence in Chinese, and every character has a history behind it, or maybe it's from like an idiom, like a chengyu or something like that.
His interest in China first began during his time in Singapore, where he was introduced to East Asian culture. That curiosity eventually brought him to Beijing, where everyday life continues to surprise him.
I've had a couple moments like that where I meet people very randomly, and they want to invite me to a place, and I've also been out with friends where people come to our table and buy us food or buy us drinks, and then those types of situations. So yeah, people are very hospitable, very very friendly.
Outside the classroom, travel has become another important part of his experience in China. From major cities to smaller regions, Zachariah says he has been struck by the country's diversity and rapid development.
And I like traveling. I've been to Japan and Korea and other parts of Asia, Southeast Asia as well. So since I've gotten to China, I've gotten to travel a lot, and it's also very cool to see how different it is in different parts of China. So the thing that's keeping me motivated is just as I learn more about China, it makes me more curious, and I want to stay here at least for the near future.
After more than a year in the country, he says one thing that stands out most is the convenience of daily life. From high-speed rail and mobile payments to affordable food and efficient public transportation, he says China's infrastructure has exceeded his expectations. For Zachariah, living abroad is ultimately about understanding a society through first-hand experience, rather than assumption or stereotypes.
I tell my friends and family overseas that whatever they think about China they're probably wrong. I think, unfortunately, there's nothing bad about China that I can think of, but the bad thing for me as someone who's from the United States is that I can see that China is just ahead. They're just doing things better than we are.
Looking ahead, Zachariah hopes to continue building a future in China, exploring career opportunities, traveling further, and deepening the connections he has already made. For the Beijing Hour, this is Jiang Tao.
U.S. companies in China are showing sustained confidence in the market despite global headwinds. A survey of the American Chamber of Commerce in China shows that half of U.S. firms still rank China among their top 3 investment destinations. 83% of member companies say positive U.S.-China relations are crucial to their China operations. 79% hold a positive or neutral outlook on bilateral relations for 2026. AmCham China President Michael Hart says China remains a vital part of most U.S. company supply chains, and the rise of Chinese consumers and market opening reforms offer long-term growth opportunities. Trade and business sit high on the agenda during the meeting between the Chinese and U.S. heads of state. Tens of thousands of small American businesses are also hoping for a positive outcome. Isabella Diaz reports.
Early May brings Small Business Week to America. And in the nation's capital, many small entrepreneurs took the opportunity to push their products at special events. But while their markets may be primarily domestic, like Beverly Perry's Ooh La La Skincare, many have one eye across the world on Beijing this week, looking for an end to the U.S.-led tariff war.
I would say the fact that we have these tariffs that's weighing us down.
In what way?
Well, it's hard to conduct business when you rely on certain products that come from abroad, and the tariffs are affecting the cost.
Perry has seen the cost of her main ingredients skyrocket since last year's unilateral imposition of global tariffs by the Trump administration.
My price has almost doubled for shea butters. It went up almost $200. I was paying maybe $248 for 55 pounds. Now I'm paying $4 something for the same amount.
Across the country in the Midwest, the story is similar. Beth Beneke runs the Busy Baby product company out of Minnesota. And since the tariffs were imposed last April, her business has been anything but child's play.
The saga of the tariffs has been that I ran out of stock for 2 months. I couldn't ship my products until that tariff came down to 30%, which meant I had no revenue for 2 months, but still all my operating expenses.
This frustration is playing out across the U.S., and as President Xi and President Trump prepare to meet, small business owners and economists alike are hoping that a resumption of Chinese purchases of U.S. goods will be one of the outcomes.
There's a lot of focus on getting China to promise to buy additional U.S. agricultural products, especially soybeans. The U.S. is looking for these quick economic wins that will be felt by certain communities in the U.S., ideally ahead of November election.
Last week, the U.S. president held a small business summit at the White House, telling the audience the U.S. economy is doing well. But high prices, persistent inflation, and tariffs remain challenges. For tens of thousands of people like Beneke and Perry, the China meeting may be far away, but its effects will be felt close to home.
That was Isabella Diaz on small business owners looking forward to a boost after the China-U.S. summit this week. Coming up, a new treaty of friendship and cooperation between China and Tajikistan.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
Now 12 minutes past the hour. China and Tajikistan have signed a treaty of permanent good neighborliness and friendly cooperation in the Chinese capital. Chinese President Xi Jinping and visiting Tajik President Emomali Rahman signed the treaty at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. Rahman's now in China for a 4-day state visit, which started on Monday. Tajikistan reaffirmed its commitment to the One China principle, recognizing that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. China supports Tajikistan's efforts to safeguard national security and achieve development and prosperity. The two sides will strengthen the synergy between the Belt and Road Initiative and Tajikistan's National Development Strategy and deepen cooperation in areas such as trade, energy, connectivity, digital economy, and green development. They'll jointly combat terrorism, separatism, and extremism, deepen mutual trust within the military, and enhance coordination within multilateral frameworks, including the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the United Nations. For more, Gao Junyeh spoke with Chu Chung, a fellow at the Belt and Road Research Center of Minzu University of China.
Professor Chu, what is the significance of using the word permanent in a bilateral treaty? And what does it tell us about the current state of the relations of the two countries?
This is actually very, very important towards China and Tajikistan's relation. Legally and politically, the 15th clause of this treaty actually said this treaty will be long effective, permanent effective, which means actually these two nations by using the treaty to solidify their peaceful and friendly relation, the diplomatic relations with each other. Permanent is not only an acknowledged towards our high-level mutual trust, and also it's a vote of the confidence towards the generation-long of the friendship between the two people and two nations.
The treaty also places strong emphasis on bilateral cooperation in areas such as trade, energy, digital economy, and green development. So how will this cooperation benefit the two countries and their peoples? And how could its positive impact extend more broadly to the wider region?
Well, that I have Tajiki students, right? I mean, Tajikistan students and not the ethnic students of China. Well, my Tajikistan students actually telling me they understand. They've been fully paying attention to the 15th five-year program in China because Tajikistan fully understand that these programs have lots of importance, not only towards China, but also towards the friendly neighbors. So I think in a longer term or in a wider range, these exemplary bilateral relations can be very important towards the whole region.
China and Tajikistan aligning their development strategies to pursue shared development is quite important, but we're living in this world of rising uncertainties. So what relevance does this treaty have for the broader international community? And what model does it offer for the conduct of interstate relations in this volatile world?
I think this kind of exemplary bilateral relations does mean a lot in the current world. Just take a look at the current world. This is a chaotic world. I mean, so many geopolitical conflicts, wars, drought, and famine, natural disasters are happening out there, and public governance and, all this kind of a public, services and products are just in a shortage. This permanent friendly neighbor model, this prioritization of the development model, this equal treatment, this equal and peaceful, coexistent model between large and smaller countries, and also this joint effort, of the regional security to maintain stability together. So all these models are telling the world, look, we are different nation and people, right? But doesn't mean you need to be suspicious about each other. It doesn't mean you need to fight against each other or compete with each other. There is always a space for us to cooperate with each other. 1 + 1 larger than 2.
That was Professor Chu Chung, a fellow of the Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's called on Pakistan to continue its mediation efforts and help address issues surrounding the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. During a phone call with Pakistani Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar, Wang praised Pakistan's role in facilitating talks between Iran and the United States and helping extend a temporary ceasefire. Wang said China supports Pakistan's mediation efforts and hopes both countries can contribute to restoring regional peace and stability. Dar said Pakistan is willing to deepen cooperation with China and work together to promote regional stability. China remains a hub for innovation and the top choice for product debuts. Senior executives from European multinational companies recently gathered in Shanghai, where they reaffirmed their commitment to the Chinese market with product and brand launches. Ya Qingjua reports.
The Shanghai government has been working since 2018 to build what it calls a first launch economy. In support of this, the 2026 First in Shanghai campaign features global debuts, exhibitions, and brand events across the city. At Yan'an East Road, a Renaissance-style building now known as the Shanghai Telecom Museum is once again becoming a stage for technological exchange. More than a century ago, it served as the key hub for a Danish telecommunications company that helped shape early communications in China. Today, the company returns to the very place where its China story began, choosing the city as the launch site for its latest innovation.
This building was created to remove distance, make it irrelevant, and the technology we are launching today here is this event has exactly the same purpose.
As digital technology reshapes how people work, the rise of the one-person company is redefining the relationship between work and workplace. Mobility, flexibility, and seamless communication are now essential rather than optional. These new working models are rapidly taking shape in Shanghai.
Barriers between work and workplace are removed aggressively around the globe, particularly strong here in China. Designing for this environment is quite challenging. There's real market demands here in China in terms of appearance, strong appeal of the product, high quality, and also high accuracy.
In this environment, a product launch is no longer just a display of new features. It's a real-world test of innovation and responsiveness.
For us, it's not just a market we are selling to, it is a market we have actively chosen to improve our products.
The trend extends beyond technology. This French nutrition and wellness company has also chosen Shanghai for the global product launch. For the French CEO, Shanghai's appeal lies in the rising sophistication and awareness of its consumers.
Chinese mummies are more and more educated and they know the formula. It's better and better every year. So clearly it's a challenge for my company to increase the quality of my product.
In his view, Shanghai offers a window into how China's consumption trends are changing.
Shanghai is a port, it's a platform, it's a hub for business, for culture, for architectures, and you are among the best places in the world to do business and to bring innovation.
The French entrepreneur plans to deepen its presence in China by expanding offline channels and getting closer to consumers. Amid global uncertainty, European companies continue choosing China not only as a marketplace, but also as a source of innovation, resilience, and long-term confidence.
That was Ye Qingzhuo on the appeal of the Chinese market to European firms. China-U.S. trade tensions sparked by the Trump administration's sweeping tariffs have impacted global supply chains. Yang Chengxi visited a factory in East China to find out how Chinese and U.S. companies are striving for more stability and certainty.
This has been one of the main flashpoints in the China-US relationship in 2025. A new round of trade disputes that year has had one defining feature. It's been a roller coaster. I spoke with a manufacturer and realized that we can see how those ups and downs influence a business in real time. But let's start from the beginning, when I took a plane to the eastern coastal city of Wenzhou. This city is home to thousands of shoe factories. About 1 out of every 12 pairs of shoes in the world is made here. I met Lin Zhihua, who runs a factory producing shoes for some of America's biggest brands.
Compared to last year, US orders are down about 40%.
In February 2025, the US government announced an additional 10% tariff on all Chinese goods.
We got an email from our client on February the 10th. They asked if we could share some of the tariff cost. Technically, the tariffs should be paid by the buyer. Once the goods leave the factory, the additional costs are the client's responsibility. But we value long-term relationships, so in the end, we agreed to absorb part of the cost, 7% of our ex-factory price.
At the end of that email, the American partner left a Chinese proverb in Chinese text. As long as the green hill is still there, you'd still have firewood. It was a way of saying, survive this, and there will still be a future. But not long after that, a much bigger piece of news hit. On April the 10th, the White House said stacked tariffs on Chinese goods could total up to 145%. The uncertainty was also hitting the factory hard. They feared if tariffs stayed high and shipment arrangements were cancelled last minute, they'd be stuck with a pile of shoes. But their American client kept saying, "Don't stop production."
The client also gave us a promise. They said, if we asked you to produce, then go ahead and produce. And if the order is eventually cancelled, we'll cover the losses.
The moment of relief came on May 12, 2025. China and the United States reached a temporary agreement in Geneva. US tariffs on Chinese goods were lowered from 145% to around 30%. Before we left Wenzhou, I sat down with Lin Zhihua in the staff cafeteria.
I'm looking forward to the US president's visit. If he comes, that's already a sign that things might ease.
I came to Wenzhou expecting to see a factory under siege from American pressure. What I found instead was a kind of quiet solidarity. The Chinese manager, worried about whether American stores would survive, and the US trader, offering to pay for shoes it might have to destroy, just so his partner in China doesn't go under. Perhaps it is like what President Xi Jinping said, that the relationship between China and the United States is like a giant ship. We will inevitably face winds and storms, but we have to steer it together.
That was Yang Chengxi on Chinese and American businesses wading through difficulties together. Coming up, South Africa has traced nearly 100 people linked to the hantavirus-struck cruise ship.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Become more eco-conscious and take action to protect our planet.
At 24 minutes past the hour. A doctor treating a French woman infected with hantavirus says the patient has the most severe form of cardiopulmonary presentation. France's health minister said authorities have identified 22 contacts linked to infected people from the cruise ship MV Hondius. Meanwhile, South Africa's health minister said the country's traced at least 97 possible contacts of people infected with hantavirus. 2 confirmed patients from the cruise ship arrived in South Africa, including a woman who died there. The World Health Organization, along with the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, have urged health authorities and the public to remain alert and strengthen surveillance measures. Experts said while the outbreak's overall public health risk in Africa remains low, recent events highlight the importance of vigilance, early detection, and effective risk communication. The WHO said it's unlikely the hantavirus will spread from the ship, but warns of more cases. Walter Morris reports from Washington.
Royal crew members and passengers of the cruise ship at the center of the deadly hantavirus outbreak arrived in the Netherlands early Tuesday. Their arrival marks the end of a complex operation to evacuate 94 people more than a month after the MV Handui left Argentina.
There is no sign that we are seeing the start of a larger outbreak. But of course, the situation could change. And given the long incubation period of the virus, it's possible we might see more cases in the coming weeks.
The World Health Organization Director General gave an update from Madrid, calling it a frightening situation. He says all of the passengers who were on board the cruise ship hit by the deadly virus have been evacuated from the vessel and repatriated to their countries.
We can say confidently that this phase of the operation was successful.
The cruise ship left the Canary Islands for the Netherlands as health officials in several countries monitor passengers who were on board. The World Health Organization says nearly 150 people from 23 countries were stuck on the ship for weeks, and now it's up to individual countries to determine the best way to prevent further infection. 17 Americans and 1 British dual citizen who were on the cruise ship arrived in Omaha, Nebraska early Monday morning for evaluation at a special quarantine unit. 2 were eventually transferred to Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, with 1 experiencing symptoms.
All of our patients, both in the National Quarantine Unit and in the Biocontainment Unit, are currently asymptomatic. Everyone is being regularly assessed for development of symptoms. The patient in our Biocontainment Unit is being retested for confirmatory testing here in the U.S. to confirm that test is indeed positive.
That was a report about efforts to identify and trace hantavirus cases. The Argentine Health Ministry says a team of scientific experts investigating the origin of the hantavirus outbreak in Argentina will leave for the southern city of Ushuaia at the end of this week or the beginning of next. The experts will retrace steps taken by a Dutch couple believed to have contracted the Andes strain of the virus before boarding the cruise ship. The couple later died. Luciano Puedo is director of terrestrial ecosystems at the Center for Applied Ecology, and she says details are still unclear and nothing's confirmed yet.
They're investigating the possible places where this couple from the cruise ship were. And since they were in New Can, the idea is to perhaps identify some places that might be of interest. We don't really know exactly where they were, or at least I don't know. But anyway, these are preliminary conversations that I don't have much detail on yet. But they could lead to some studies soon.
Officials initially suspected infection at a garbage dump in Ushuaia, but local authorities say the virus has never been recorded in that region. Scientists say this is a rare chance to learn if the rat-borne virus is circulating in Tierra del Fuego, an area historically free of it. Meanwhile, other researchers are reconstructing the tourist route across Argentina. Experts stress that while concerning, outbreaks of the virus remain extremely rare. Hungary's new cabinet's been sworn in, marking the final transfer of power from the former administration of Viktor Orban to the center-right government led by Prime Minister Peter Magyar. The 16 ministers took office after just 2 days of parliamentary hearings, signaling Magyar's push for a swift end to the political system that Orban led for 16 years. Magyar said the Hungarian people gave his TISA party historic authority in last month's election, declaring that the country wants change. The new leader has vowed to restore democratic institutions, reestablish checks and balances, and fight corruption. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says Africa is not a continent waiting for solutions, but one producing them. He made the remarks at a summit in Nairobi, calling for equal and mutually beneficial partnerships. He noted that Africa faces high borrowing costs, energy shortages, and a climate crisis it did not cause, but suffers from disproportionately. The UN chief stressed that when Africa succeeds, the world wins. We're at 29 past the hour. Beijing's down to 21 degrees Wednesday evening. It'll be cloudy and 33 on Thursday. Shanghai will be overcast through tomorrow. The low's 21. It's up to 28. Chongqing's cloudy and down to 19, then a light rainfall and 31. Nanchang will see thunder showers and a low of 21. That's followed by overcast skies and 27. Lhasa will be overcast and down to 8, followed by light rain and 19 degrees. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad's cloudy overnight. It's down to 22. Thursday's overcast and 36 degrees Celsius. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, as President Trump's state visit begins, China says it's ready to work with the U.S. in the spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. The Chinese and Tajik presidents have signed a new treaty on friendship and cooperation between the two countries. And South African authorities are tracing nearly 100 contacts linked to passengers on the hantavirus-struck cruise ship. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
From the refreshing cup of tea that starts your morning to the paper that you write on, the roots of many familiar parts of modern life can be traced back to ancient ideas. Join us on Made in Ancient China and discover how ideas born millennia ago became some of the world's greatest treasures. Made in Ancient China brings you stories of human ambition, inspiration, and connection. Now available on all major podcast platforms.
Shh, listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. Right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Wednesday. Still to come. In business, U.S. companies in China express optimism as President Trump heads to Beijing. In sports, China's under-17 footballers qualify for the U17 World Cup for the first time in decades. In culture and entertainment, 2 legendary actresses have helped to open this year's Cannes Film Festival. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTNradio. But now with a check of the day's headlines, here's Tianli.
Thank you, Shane. The Chinese and U.S. delegations have held exchanges in South Korea on economic and trade issues, as well as on further expanding cooperation. An official statement has described the discussions as candid, in-depth, and constructive. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent led the consultations at Incheon International Airport on Wednesday. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has met with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng at the presidential office in Seoul. The Vice Premier said China is willing to work with South Korea to implement the consensus reached by the two leaders and to develop the strategic cooperative partnership. Lee expressed the hope that the two sides will further strengthen exchanges and cooperation. He also called for enhancing the amity between the two peoples. He Lifeng also met with South Korean Deputy Prime Minister Koo Yung-chul, exchanging views on strengthening economic and trade cooperation. Authorities on the Chinese mainland are urging the United States to abide by the One China principle and the 3 joint communiques. A spokesperson from the State Council Taiwan Affairs Office said the Taiwan question is China's internal affair and allows no external interference. The mainland spokesperson said China opposes any military contact between the U.S. and the Taiwan region. She urged Washington to handle the Taiwan question with caution, stop arms sales to the region, and not send wrong signals to separatist forces. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing intense pressure to resign amid fresh Labour Party turmoil. 4 junior ministers have stepped down, 3 of them urging Starmer to set a clear departure timetable. They joined 90 Labour MPs publicly calling for him to go. The cabinet remains divided. Some members have privately advised his exit, while senior figures, including Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, have voiced full support. The crisis stems from Labour's local election losses last week, nearly 1,500 council seats. Prosecutors have charged the operator of the ship that crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge in March 2024, killing 6 construction workers. A key employee has also been charged. The indictment names Synergy Marine based in Singapore and Synergy Maritime based in India. Raha Krishnan Kathik, a 47-year-old Indian national who served as technical superintendent for the container ship Delhi, was also charged. Kelly O'Hayes is U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland. She said if the ship had used proper fuel pumps with backup systems, it would have regained power in time to avoid the bridge.
The indictment alleges that if the Dolly had been using the proper fuel supply pumps, then the vessel would have regained power in time to safely navigate under the Key Bridge. But because the ship was using the flushing pumps, which did not have the redundancies, the ship did not regain power in time.
The FBI is investigating the vessel's operations and whether the crew knew about critical mechanical issues before leaving port. Maryland officials estimate it will cost between $4.3 billion and $5.2 billion to replace the bridge. A new bridge is expected to open to traffic by 2030. South Africa has launched a nationwide tree planting campaign to fight climate change and boost environmental sustainability. Forestry, Fisheries and Environment official Bernice Swartz announced the presidential 1 billion trees program in Pretoria, with a major planting event set for Heritage Day on September the 24th. In 2025, over 1.3 million trees were planted on that day. Under the theme My Tree, My Oxygen, the program will see trees planted in schools, clinics, parks and residential areas. Swartz said greening the country is an environmental responsibility and a social and economic necessity, noting severe weather patterns threatening livelihoods. She called on all South Africans to support the campaign to protect the environment for future generations.
All right, thank you very much. That's Tian Li with headlines. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in business, U.S. companies in China express optimism as President Trump heads to Beijing.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
37 past, and with business now, here's Tian Yu.
Thank you, Shane. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed higher on Wednesday. The Shanghai Composite was up nearly 0.7%, while the Shenzhen Component gained almost 1.7%. Non-metal materials and battery equipment shares were among the top gainers. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index increased almost 0.2%, and in Japan, Nikkei climbed more than 0.8%. Trade between China and the United States has evolved over the years. Bilateral trade in goods hit nearly $690 billion in 2024. That's nearly 275 times what it was in 1979, when the two countries first established diplomatic relations. Divided by 365, the 2024 figure gives about $1.9 billion per day. Since 2001, U.S. goods exports to China have skyrocketed. The speed is more than 3 times the growth rate of U.S. exports to the rest of the world. Services trade between the two countries expanded even faster. In the past 22 years, two-way trade in services grew over 7 times. Meanwhile, the world's two largest economies are within each other's top 3 trading partners. Their trade is highly complementary as both play to their comparative strengths. In 2025, more than 1 out of every 2 Tesla EVs sold worldwide rolled out of the Shanghai Gigafactory. A survey by the U.S.-China Business Council shows nearly all of American respondents say their companies cannot remain globally competitive without China operations. Many U.S. companies remain optimistic about opportunities in China while hoping for greater stability and predictability when it comes to China-U.S. relations. Yu Boken spoke with Marjorie Krauss, founder and executive chair of APCO, on why she remains bullish on the Chinese market.
We talked about China-US relations back at Davos in January, and you said that stability is very crucial. And now as President Trump visits China, what are businesses hoping to see from this meeting?
I think the messages for both countries, it's important to have the message of stability. And this is no different than what we talked about a little bit earlier. And the reason for that is companies need predictability. And I know from the U.S. end with the tariffs, one day it's this, one day it's that, how much disorientation it provided for the companies. And so I think it's wonderful that they're getting together. The idea of the two people talking together, the two leaders talking together, I think makes everybody more comfortable that there'll be some kind of more normal relationships between China and the U.S.
Well, as a multinational company, what are you seeing on the ground in terms of how U.S. firms are evaluating China's market?
I think that for the U.S. companies, maybe there's a little bit of tug of war between the headquarters and the people on the ground who see so much more opportunity. And so I think for the U.S. companies, if we could come to some framework where it's less political and more economic, I think that would be a really good thing. You know, China is really showing itself to be very innovative in certain areas. And I know a lot of the healthcare innovations, and maybe there's an opportunity for some of the companies to partner. APCO's like a bridge between China and the world and China. So we've come up with this idea of like a multi-local company. You know, we talk about multinational, but it gives the idea that really these companies need to learn to be multi-local and know how to deal differently in each area.
APCO has been in China for a decade, and as Chinese market continue to evolve, what is your longer strategy here?
Well, we are very bullish on continuing our work in China. And I think that we see the Chinese market as one where there's a lot of opportunities for these companies that are becoming these multinationals or multi-locals. Both economies are so important to the world that if we could find some ways to partner, you know, it would be so important for the future. And also, I think the world is really dependent on these two big economies also paying attention to the rest of the world and how what they do can be helpful and elevate the quality of life.
And that was APCO founder Marjorie Crowes expressing confidence in the Chinese market. China had sent a new satellite group into space from the Taiyuan Satellite Launch Center in North China. The group will constitute the Space Sail constellation, a mega commercial network. There are now over 140 satellites in the Space Sail constellation. They will provide high-speed, secure, and reliable broadband internet services to users around the world. It will consist of more than 10,000 satellites in low-altitude orbits before the end of 2030. Lychee exports from Hainan province have surged as streamlined customs clearance procedures greatly cut delivery time. As Hainan enters its peak lychee harvest season, export orders for the tropical fruit are rising sharply. From orchards to cargo ships, every step of the supply chain has accelerated to get the perishable fruit to international markets faster. Cai Fudai is a testing officer at the Salmonpo Town Agricultural Service Center in Haikou.
Testing results will come out within 30 minutes, and we will upload the data to the provincial system. Once the information is received at the Xinhai port, a refrigerated truck will head to the dock. After taking an electronic photo, the fruit exports can leave the island quickly.
Thanks to the adoption of a series of efficiency-boosting measures, lychees from Haikou can now reach logistics centers in Guangdong province in less than 24 hours. Customs data shows that Hainan has exported around 110 batches of lychees, a yearly increase of nearly 40%. To further improve export efficiency, local authorities have digitalized the entire process for inspection and quarantine certificates for lychee exports and other specialty agricultural products. Soaring oil prices saw April inflation jump in the United States. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the consumer price index rose 3.8% last month on a yearly basis, the biggest jump in 3 years. Karina Mitchell has more.
Well, the news was disappointing, but it wasn't all that surprising because inflation has been trending a little bit higher. So for the month of April, CPI, the index, it saw a rise of 0.6%. The annual rise there came in at 3.8%. Now, but take a look at how wages compare, because it's the first time that we're actually seeing inflation outpace wage growth. The wage report for April that came out saw annual wages rise at a rate of 3.6%, which basically means anything that you made in a raise was eaten up by inflation. So it makes this report even more bitter to swallow. If you strip out volatile food and energy, core CPI, something that the Federal Reserve looks at more closely, that saw a rise as well. It was up at an annual pace of 2.8%. It's important to take this in context because inflation had been trending lower for more than a year and coming closer to the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. In fact, in February, before this Iran conflict broke out with Israel and the U.S. as well involved here, inflation was at a pace of 2.4%. So that is a very sharp increase we've seen in just a short amount of time. So where were the gains? Well, most of them came from this energy shock. 40% of the rise in April was attributed to higher energy costs. In fact, gas prices rose by 5.4% just in April. Year over year, they're up 28%. Shelter costs were up by 0.6%. Food at home also higher by 0.7%. And then we saw tariff-sensitive sectors like apparel and home furnishings. That saw an increase as well. And then airfares, we've all been talking about them a lot. The month of April, we saw a rise of 2.8% month over month. But year over year, that number is 21%. So many people may be rethinking their travel abroad for the summer holidays. Now, one sector that did see a decline, one of the very few sectors with new vehicle prices did see a drop there in prices. So what does the Federal Reserve do with this data? Because they're seeing inflation go in exactly the opposite direction from where they want it to go. But they're seeing the labor market as still being quite stable. If that continues, it doesn't really present a scenario for cutting rates. If anything, if this is prolonged for any length of time, the Federal Reserve might think about hiking rates at some point. But a lot could change before then, so we'll have to wait and see.
And that was Karina Mitchell reporting.
All right, thank you very much. So that's Tianyu with Business. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, China's under-17 footballers qualify for the World Cup for the first time in decades.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
47 past, and with sports now, here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Shane. We begin with football. China stormed into the quarterfinals of the AFC U17 Asian Cup with a 2-0 victory over Qatar, sealing qualification for this year's U17 World Cup. It marks China's return to the global U17 stage for the first time since 2005. Forward He Sifan opened the scoring in the 14th minute, racing onto Wang Xiang's pass before unleashing a thunderous strike into the top corner. The young striker says the goal came straight from hard work on the training ground.
I trained that way, so I knew the ball was going in eventually. I did not play in the last game, but this time the coaches trusted me and put me in the starting lineup. I did not want to let them down. The first match against Indonesia was tough, but from Japan in the second game to Qatar in the third, we kept getting better and fighting harder with every match. Qatar is a strong team, but we dug deep and got it done.
China dictated pace from start to finish, controlling possession and carving out chance after chance. Qatar failed to register a shot on target until late in the opening half. China sealed the victory in the 71st minute when Zhang Bolin rose to head home Wang Xiang's pinpoint set piece, sending the Chinese side into the last 8. Cristiano Ronaldo and Al Nassr were left stunned as goalkeeper Bento scored a stoppage-time own goal, snatching a defeat from jaws from victory against the local rivals Al Hilal. Leading 1-0 and seconds from clinching their first Saudi Pro League title since 2019, Al Nassr's hopes crumbled in a dramatic turn. A win would have given Ronaldo his first league crown with the club since joining in January 2023. Al Nassr tops the table with 83 points from 33 games, while Al Hilal sits second on 78 points. Real Betis stormed back into the UEFA Champions League for the first time in 21 years after a dramatic 2-1 victory of Elche in La Liga. Pablo Fornal's start for Betis setting up the opener before culling in a stunning winner in the 68th minute. Elsewhere, Levante kept its survival hopes alive with a thrilling 3-2 comeback win over Celta Vigo, crushing Celta's European ambitions. Atletico Madrid also claimed the hard-fought 2-1 away win against Osasuna. Florentino Perez has announced new elections for the presidency of Real Madrid, less than 18 months after his re-election in 2025. The 79-year-old made the announcement after an emergency board meeting amid a disappointing season without major silverware and growing uncertainty of the club's future direction. Perez first led Real Madrid from 2000 to 2006 during the famed Galacticos era. Before returning in 2009, he has run unopposed in the club's last 5 presidential elections. Switching to tennis, Jannik Sinner extended his remarkable Masters 1000 winning streak to 31 matches, matching Novak Djokovic's all-time record with a straight-set victory over Andrea Pellegrino at the Italian Open. The 4-time Grand Slam champion came out firing, storming to a 4-love lead in the opening set. Pellegrino mounted a brief challenge in the second, leveling at 3-all, but Sinner quickly regained control and sealed win in dominant fashion, striking 13 winners along the way. Fresh off his Madrid Open triumph, Sinner has now captured 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles. One more title in Rome would make him only the second man alongside Djokovic to complete the full set of all 9 Masters 1000 crowns. In the CBA, the Beijing Ducks powered into the playoff semifinals with an emphatic 88-73 home victory over the Guangdong Southern Tigers, taking the best-of-3 quarterfinal series 2-1. Beijing head coach Xu Limin credited the win to one key factor: belief.
We
overcame ourselves under pressure, showed our true level, and won the game. We did a lot of work after our defeat in Game 2. We watched the footage closely and discussed it with our team. In my opinion, our performance this time relied on our attitude, determination, and confidence.
The Ducks will next face regular season champion Shanghai in the best-of-5 semi-final showdown. And finally, in the NBA, the San Antonio Spurs dominated the Minnesota Timberwolves 126-97, taking a 3-2 lead in their Western Conference semi-final series. Victor Wembanyama returned after his Game 4 ejection, igniting the Spurs early with 16 of San Antonio's first 24 points as the team raced to a 24-9 lead. He finished with 27 points and 17 rebounds. The Spurs led by 18 in the second quarter, weathered a brief Timberwolves comeback, then surged to a 91-73 advantage entering the final quarter. San Antonio extended the lead to 20 early in the fourth, holding off Minnesota to secure a 29-point win. Game 6 of the best-of-7 series is in Minneapolis on Friday.
All right, thank you very much. That's Yang Guang with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, and coming up in culture and entertainment, 2 legendary actresses have helped to open this year's Cannes Film Festival.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
53 past now, turning to culture and entertainment. The Cannes Film Festival has officially begun, kicking off 12 days of continuous premieres that'll conclude on May 23rd with the presentation of the prestigious Palme d'Or. Legendary actresses Jane Fonda and Gong Li took to the stage to open the festival.
I officially declare the 79th Cannes Film Festival open.
Fonda hailed cinema as an act of resistance, and the ceremony also celebrated the Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson, who received an honorary Palme d'Or for his lifetime achievements. This year's main competition features 22 films vying for the coveted top prize. Following Iranian director Jafar Panahi's It Was Just an Accident, which won in 2025. A scenic lake in Xinjiang's attracting growing numbers of visitors with its breathtaking natural views and immersive tourism experiences. Zhang Ningning has more.
Above the turquoise water, a helicopter cut through the blue. Tourists jump from thousands of meters, free fall over the vivid lake. Then the parachute opens. The silence after the scream. That's the new siren.
This is our first time here. We thought it was just scenery, but there is so much to do, like this speed boat. We're trying skydiving this afternoon and staying a few more days.
On the lake, boats glide across the calm blue water, leaving soft repose behind. On the shore, horses walk at a steady pace. No engines, just the whisper of the wind, the rhythmic jingle of saddle bells, and the deep, quiet silence.
Many tourists come for the helicopter and skydiving, but they also want the traditional experience. Riding a horse on the grassland, feeling the wind. That's what Seram Lake has always been about.
Today, travelers don't want to choose. They want adventure, scenery, and culture, all in one day. Take the Wang family from Anhui, for example. They agreed to disagree over breakfast, each choosing their own adventure.
I just took a paramotor flight, and my wife rode the horse. Each of us got our perfect day.
Local officials say new activities are attracting more travelers from outside Xinjiang, with many choosing to stay overnight. At a press conference on Xinjiang's 15th five-year plan, the regional chair said Xinjiang will speed up major scenic spot upgrades and smart tourism, ensuring visitors are willing to come, stay longer, and enjoy a safe, happy experience. As of May 10th, the Seram Lake had welcomed nearly 1.2 million visitors, up 21.4% from last year. It expects 8.6 million by year's end, a 12% increase.
That was Zhang Ningning reporting. Chinese animation has surged in creativity and gained international acclaim in recent years. Ne Zha 2 is a striking example, having overtaken Titanic at the global box office to reach 4th place worldwide. Acclaimed animation director Anthony Molinera praised its distinctive visual style, highlighting how it sets itself apart from Hollywood.
China needs a U.S., shall we say, benefactor who loves Chinese work and Chinese animated film to open that door. And I haven't seen that yet. And because it's a big public relations campaign to open that door for Chinese animation to be seen. You know, children will like it, adults will like it, and they're different characters.
We added that China's unique animation aesthetics bring fresh perspective, capable of diversifying and revitalizing the increasingly formulaic Hollywood animation industry. We're at 57 past and checking the forecast before we go. Beijing, it's down to 21 Wednesday evening, cloudy and 33 on Thursday. Shanghai will be overcast through tomorrow, a low of 21 and a high of 28. Chongqing's cloudy and 19 overnight, then a light rainfall and 31. Nanchang will be getting thunder showers and a low of 21, followed by overcast skies and 27. Lhasa is overcast with a low of 8, followed by light rain and 19. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today. As President Trump's state visit begins, China says it's ready to work with the U.S. in the spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. And the Chinese and Tajik presidents have signed a new treaty on friendship and cooperation between the two countries. On behalf of the staff, this is Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the yellow river in his eyes.
The yellow river is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in the time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio